All right. And we are not live, but we're recording. Hi, Liz. How's it going?
Hey, Ivy. It's going well. How are you?
Good. We don't have Sean today because Sean is in some far away land somewhere. But this is, I think, my first one that I've actually... He's recorded a couple. He recorded a couple when I was off getting married by himself. But this is the first one that I've ever done by myself. And
Yeah.
I'm glad it's with you because we actually know each other.
We do. I'm honored to be flying solo with you today, and
Woo!
sad not to get to know Sean a little bit, but we can do that, some other time.
Well, next time you're in New York, Sean is a lot more fun than I am, so it'll be.
I find that
we'll
hard
do
to
something
believe.
fun.
But does he have as good
Sean,
of hair as you do?
Sean is completely bald. Sean is like completely bald. Like he like shaves his head. Like
oh, perfect.
He has like the way to describe Sean is he has like really strong features. Like my like face kind of blends into my neck, but like Sean like is one of those people who like he like does like ultramarathons and Ironmans and stuff.
Wow.
And so he's like one of those like super like toned bald dudes.
Yeah.
So it really works for him. It really works for him.
Good for him.
I really shouldn't like objectify my own employees, but
no,
but,
no. I think you're actually doing a great job of hyping him up.
Great. I love that. Okay, Liz, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us. We'll get to sort of how we know each other, but
sure.
Tell me a little bit about you. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So, Liz Reeves. I'm director of client care operations at Relias, which is a North Carolina-based healthcare software company. We are, our bread and butter is workforce enablement solutions. So in particular, compliance and continuing education, training for clinicians, hiring and recruiting solutions, some additional pieces that just, help us serve our customers, serve their patients. We're in reputation management, patient experience, employee experience. So again, sort of a variety of different workforce enablement solutions. And my team in particular, client care operations, is really everything post-sale. So we own customer experience. We own things like, chatbots and our admin community, customer education. We also own helping internal teams that service our customers. So client success, support, professional services, do what they do at scale. So we have a really, I think, kind of interesting team composition in the sense of we get to do a lot of really cool client-facing work, but we also at the same time get to do a lot of stuff behind the scenes helping the teams that serve our customers. So we have some elements of even things like quality management, and we, as you may get into in a minute, Ivy, we get to work with really cool vendors like Coursera to drive, efficiency and process optimization through technology adoption.
Yeah, no, it's been really fun to work with y'all. So Relias is a customer of Coursera's. Liz and I met early last year, I think.
I think it's been almost 2 years.
Damn, that's crazy. Actually, it's crazy that I've been doing this for like a bit longer than 2 years, like 2 to 3, and like it's crazy that it's been that long. I'm Ibi Syed.
I'm Sean Collins.
And this is Numbers and Narratives. The thing I really, really like about you guys is, one, the culture is awesome. Like, I won't, hopefully not all of my customers listen to this, but it's always just like, it's kind of just like a big +1 when you can like develop real human connections. And the thing that's great about the Relias team is they're obviously just like incredibly smart, incredibly competent, but also fairly like fast moving. Like you guys move very, very quickly. You guys implement new things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Bertelsmann as a group, like constantly like, is working with and seems to be acquiring like lots of cool, like new companies all the time.
Yeah. One of the, I think, really interesting parts of working at Relias is that we're privately owned by one shareholder, and that shareholder is Bertelsmann. And Bertelsmann is really incredible because of just the longevity that they've had as a business. They're like 200 years old, and they've been able to, they've been around since the 1800s and have been able to evolve. Been able to evolve and transform their business, decade over decade for 2 centuries and invest in all kinds of different really interesting industries. And our industry of education and technology, healthcare education and technology in particular, is just one of many ventures that they have and many different portfolios that they subsidize. So it's cool because we have sort of the culture of Relias and then that sort of larger Bertelsmann culture that helps drive this culture of innovation and change and stuff like that. But it's very fast paced. And it's interesting kind of sitting at the nexus of healthcare and technology because healthcare kind of pulls you in one direction where technology pulls you in the opposite. So it's an interesting space to sit in for sure.
Yeah, one of the things that you guys do a bunch of, I think, is there's a lot of like, I mean, obviously we're an AI company, but I know you guys like work with Gong, you guys work with a bunch of other like vendors on
Yeah.
this kind of work. And you mentioned like, internal team optimization, you mentioned client
Hmm.
care. How are you guys thinking about and using AI like at the company and sort of planning for it in the next, whether that be in the next quarter or the next year? Like
Yeah.
what are things that you guys are excited about? Have you guys like decided as a company like how you want to use it versus how you don't want to use it? Do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, good question. And I think it's kind of like the $1 million question for every company right now is, how do we use it effectively and not find ourselves in a space where we're diluting the customer experience through AI. And for us, it's, we think of it really in two different categories. There's the AI that we believe should be infused in our products themselves so that we can provide the most optimal product to our customers. But then there's also the internal use where, to your point, we're leveraging it to optimize our processes and really bolster the overall customer experience and also ensure that teams can be as efficient as possible. The I would say the overarching philosophy for us from a customer perspective is human first, human last. And I think you had a guest on, maybe it was the last episode, that talked a little bit about their philosophy of using AI to drive really meaningful customer experience without replacing humans, but just sort of leveraging it to drive a really informed human touch. And that's really what we're focused on too. Is our customers sitting in the healthcare space are really drowning in administrative burden. There's constant regulatory and compliance change that they're facing. It's difficult in terms of margins to just keep their businesses open. And it's a quickly evolving space because of the sort of shift towards value based care that we're seeing. And as a result, any place that we can save our customers time, not just through their use of our products, but also through their interactions with us, is a game changer for our customers. And, I think our outlook over the next couple of years is to be very intentional about how we leverage AI. There's been some recent studies in the last year or so that highlight, in particular in healthcare, that healthcare workers can sometimes be distrustful of AI. And that's, very understandable. They're working in a highly regulated industry, and therefore Relias works in a highly regulated industry. And so we need to be especially judicious about how we're using it and ensuring that it's in a way that continues to be very customer centric and allows our customers to feel like they can continue to trust our business as much as they always have. So I would say we may not be moving as quickly as some industries. We're not like a Klarna that's going to go out and replace our support team with AI agents, but instead we want to be able to grow rapidly as a business without necessarily having to double the size of our workforce. And we also want to provide the quickest and most valuable experience for our customers because we know their time is very precious. So I'd say that's kind of the biggest things that we're thinking about.
I'm really glad that you mentioned Klarna because the Klarna thing is really interesting, right? Because like a year and a half ago, they were like, we're gonna replace everyone or whatever,
Right, right.
and then they like went back on it. They're like, actually, we like ended up hiring more people than
We had
we
before.
let go of. Yeah, exactly. They have like a lot more people than they had before, which is absolutely bananas. And one of the things that you mentioned there that's super interesting is the sort of sector that you're in is highly regulated. They might be mistrustful of AI, but at the same time, right, like you can't exponentially grow your team as your business grows. Like it just
Yeah,
you can't, like you don't want to sort of grow at the same rate.
right.
So taking into account that like human connection is super 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 important, what are like how, like it sounds like the thing that you're trying to do is actually like elevate the customer care experience with
Absolutely.
like, right, like don't replace the human, but make it more efficient, make it so they can actually, they can something as simple as like more efficient access to information will make it easier to sort of get the customer the help that they want,
Right.
make it a little bit more self-serve. What are sort of ways that you can think of where you can use something like AI internally to actually elevate the human connection rather than replace it?
Absolutely. Yeah. A couple that come to mind, I think, relate to some of the work that even we've been doing with Cotera, Abby. And, again, I think AI can be so powerful because, especially when you live in a world where there's sort of access to unlimited data, we have so much information these days about our customers. And in a lot of ways, our customers, knowing that we have so much data about them, expect us to provide them with a very personalized experience because we do know so much about their usage, their behaviors, the industries that they work in and things of that nature. So internally, we're also using AI to help us drive the most valuable interactions with our customers. So, whether it's on the marketing side, ensuring that the messages that we're delivering to our customers are really based in what we think they would find the most valuable based on a variety of factors. Same thing on the sales side. We one of the things that we've done with you guys that's been so exciting is this next to buy model that you guys have, helped us really built and then infused in the strategic account planning process that we have. And that has that means that when a salesperson reaches out to a customer for, upsell, cross sell conversations, they're not kind of shooting in the dark, right? They're approaching those conversations from a much more data driven perspective where they can say, hey, this is something I think would be a good fit for you based on X, Y, and Z factors, whether it's solely their own usage or the archetype of the customer and how they compare to other similar customers. You know what I mean? So we're also using it to kind of drive really meaningful conversations across teams. And certainly, specifically on the client care side, when we think about the support experience, the implementation experience, we're looking to use agentic experiences to take away a lot of the administrative burden of servicing customers so that our teams can spend more time with customers. When you think about an implementation, for example, of a customer, it's not just the implementation itself, it's also the setup, making sure that the site has the right settings and the right assets entitled to it and, you know, this, that, and the other. So there's a ton of prep that has to go in before the first time you ever even meet with a customer. And what agentic experiences allow us to think about is how could we reinvest that time that we were spending doing administrative tasks with the customer instead, to ensure that we're quickening time to first value, setting them up for success in the future. So we're really looking for ways where we can drive efficiency with process internally so that we can reinvest that time with our customers. Um,
I love that a lot. I love that a lot. It's a lot of the sort of like, okay, like what is the salesperson's like main job? Like where are they have the highest leverage, right? Like where can
yep,
they not be replaced? And how do you do the same thing for like a CSM or a customer support person? Like
exactly.
the highest leverage thing for them to do is sales, talking to customers, upselling
Yes.
customers, helping them, right? Like spending time there. There's this sort of, we were doing some research on this because we were there was a time that I was thinking about potentially selling our agentic product into hospitals. It's like
Hmm.
really, really difficult. There's like a lot
Yeah.
of regulatory stuff, so we decided not to do it. But
Yes.
like for example, like doctors spend for every for every hour they spend with a patient, they spend 2 hours in the EMR.
Oh
And
yeah,
that is like one of the reasons why healthcare is incredibly expensive, is because like if you're paying for an hours of doctor's time, you're actually like the way that the math actually works out is it's like 3 hours,
that's exactly
because
right.
it just kind of goes the same way for all industries, right? Like salespeople spend a ton of time writing notes, putting things into the CRM, pushing pushing new leads into someone else's funnel.
Right,
Support
right.
people are spending time switching between 8 different tools to try to get access to the right information. If you can make that process better, that that just makes everything a lot more efficient and gives the person the time to be able to not have to incur those switching costs.
That's exactly right. And I think you highlight there, it'd be something that's really important, which is sort of honestly the trickle down impact of removing administrative burden. So again, like I mentioned, our customers tell us time and time again that their biggest pain point is what you just mentioned, which is just the administrative overhead that they all have to fill out paperwork and assign training to their employees and ensure that their staff are in compliance and all of these things. And when we think about the tangential benefits of removing some of the administrative burden for our customer facing teams so that they can spend more time with customers, having more strategic specific conversations instead of the sort of surface level ones that they have to have now, it also means that then our customers can spend more time with their patients and less time with all of this administrative burden because they understand our products more, and I think that that's really the one of the beautiful and most powerful use cases for agentic and AI experiences is, to your point, there's so much that cannot replace a human, in particular when it comes to relationship building. It's difficult to build a relationship with an agentic experience. And I think the more that we can lean into leveraging AI and agentic experiences to remove the stuff that isn't relationship building for these teams that we get the most value out of, through building relationships, the better. And it means better outcomes for our customers and for the patients that they serve. So we found that to be successful so far, but we're kind of just dipping our toes into a lot of it, to be honest, because there's so much you can do with agentic.
There's a ton there. I guess following up then, because what what happens is, and I think that the episode that you're talking about is the one with Justin from Life 360, potentially, because that was, I think, the last one that went live. And he did talk a lot about this. A lot of the same thing that I asked him, I'll ask you, is that is sort of a great ideal case for this. Like I like that as obviously like a producer of this technology, but also as a consumer. Um, but it does beg the question of like, what skill sets do we prioritize today in when we hire and when we onboard someone onto our team that might change, right? Like how do we change how we hire? How do we change how we think about team composition? How do we change how we think about training? Like you're a leader in this space. You're not only running a customer support team, but you're also running a customer success team. You're running internal implementation. There's just a ton of different. I actually don't think I have anyone that I know that has a breadth of experience in sort of hiring these sorts of folks as you do. And so I'm really curious to hear, where do you think the world goes? How do you who do you think that you're trying to acquire talent wise in 5 years that you might not necessarily have acquired like 5 years ago?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that I love, honestly, for a lot of reasons, but mostly because you're, I think, recognizing, Ibby, that again, it's not like AI is going to replace jobs without creating new ones. It's cyclical. And I think in a lot of ways, especially on the customer experience side, we'll start to sort of see the pendulum swing back a little bit to where, a true sort of human first bespoke customer experience is something that's going to be highly valued by a lot of consumers, and yet at the same time, one that will require AI and agentic workflows to drive that really valuable, bespoke, human first customer experience, which is kind of interesting. So I think in terms of hiring, and this is something that we talk about a lot at Relias, and one of the things that I really appreciate about our internal learning and development teams is that we are constantly thinking about how the competencies of our roles need to change for a variety of different factors, not just because of AI, but because of all kinds of other geopolitical, environmental factors, whatever the case may be. And I think I would be looking for different skill sets in 5 years, whether it was because of AI or because of something else. But I think sitting in the seat today, I would say I'm starting to look more towards individuals that have a high level of resiliency, are extremely intellectually agile, and are kind of able to problem solve really effectively. And the reason for that being, I think the direction that AI and technology is going means that things like technical skill building, education, those are things that are going to be a lot more accessible to a wider range of individuals, and which I think is good. I think it levels the playing field quite a bit, because some of the much more technical skill sets that we've valued for a long time, um, will be, like I said, a little bit more accessible for people to learn than they have been in the past. And as a result, we can start to really, as leaders, look for individuals that possess the soft skills that are required to sort of propel us into this next phase of constant change and technology. And for me, the folks, and I've sort of always said this when I've hired individuals, I have always looked for people that are highly inquisitive, just have a lot of questions. And I think the more questions you can ask, as long as they're not the same question over and over again, but the more questions that you ask in any given role, I think, the higher likelihood of success that you have, because effective questioning is so powerful. And that's a skill set that I think, is, I wouldn't say a lost art, but if you can, I'd rather personally, I would rather hire somebody that's, again, highly inquisitive, shows experience with resiliency, going all the way down the path on developing something and trying to bring it to market, and then realizing 75% of the way there that, it's not the right move and we need to pull back. Someone who can quickly pivot and focus on something else based on the needs of the market. Those are skills that I think, to me, right now are more valuable than necessarily someone who has a ton of experience, building custom GPTs or whatever the case may be. Those are things now you can learn how to do in an afternoon on YouTube and through ChatGPT. You know what I mean? And instead, I am really starting to look more towards, and I imagine in the coming years that this will only deepen. But I'm looking for people that are, like I said, great problem solvers. We want who want to understand the root issue at hand when they face a problem, and want to address it holistically. That's something that I think is hard to find sometimes, as someone that's just a great problem solver. And it's hard to think of a role, I think, especially in a post sales environment, where just truly being intellectually curious and ruthless in problem solving wouldn't make you highly successful in that role. We can teach you a whole lot of technical skills, but if you aren't curious about the work that you're doing, it's going to be hard, to move from where we are today to where we are in 5 years, which I think is really important. As soft skills, I think are going to become more and more important for folks as we move forward in the next 5 years. So kind of rambled, but
No, I like that a lot. I really, really like a lot of what you said. Like I believe, and I've actually started to see this where, I mean, and we gave that sort of, we did a little agentic demo for your team a few weeks ago, but one of the things that I've seen in my own employees that's absolutely insane is, and when I look at specifically engineering, it's just become all of these like sort of like coding tools have made that become super accessible. So the example that I always like to give is that like our head of sales, like we wanted to run like a webinar series, and usually he would put together like a task list of, hey, like we need to spin up a landing page, we need to do all these things, we need to have a place where people can go sign up, and that would then go in the engineers backlog, and we have like a small engineering team, and so it would take months for that kind of thing to get done. But with things like Lovable, I was like, hey, like, want to just try like spitting this up and use it, having the AI use the same theme that's on our landing page and sticking it in there. And he goes, okay. And he did it in an afternoon. And he doesn't have
Yeah.
any technical background, right? Like, he's
Yeah.
just a smart problem solver. And if you give people, our CSMs like Kendra and Karis, who you've met, um, they, a lot of times customers will be like, hey, like there's a UI bug or something's broken on your site, or this doesn't, I don't understand where, I don't understand how to do this thing on your platform, like can you
Right.
help me? And they take that feedback, they act like product people, and they're like, honestly, like let me actually try to ship a change. Now obviously we don't let them like willy-nilly like push things into our production system, but what happens is small things that would usually take months to fix or months to improve, they can easily, with a couple lines of human text, try to improve the experience. And the quote there is like try, right? Like our engineering team still sort of holds the keys to what goes in, but it makes it really easy for them to make those changes. And I just believe that the types of folks that you want on your team is exactly what you said. Folks that are curious, folks that understand the business problem and have the tools necessary to fix it very quickly, right? It's
Absolutely.
sort of like ingenuity loop where it's okay, I express the desire to fix a problem, I express the desire to deeply understand it, but I also now have the tooling and the time it takes for me to be able to solve that problem has fundamentally come down from where it was. um
Yeah.
and that's super super cool.
Yeah. I think, you know, in some ways, that's one of the most exciting parts about this wave in the last 2 years of AI, and now more specifically, excuse me, now more specifically, this agentic piece is that we're actually, in a perfect world, freeing up time for people to be more like people. Like, if a lot of this administrative stuff and sort of the lower value tasks are absorbed by AI, people have more time to do what they do best, which is to be people, and that's one of the most interesting things I think we've seen in the last couple of years, because, COVID in a lot of ways really isolated all of us. I think there are studies we've seen come out about the impacts it's had to like socialization in certain demographics and things like that. And I think some perspectives see this wave of AI as being sort of like the next wave of what further isolates us and further diminishes our social capabilities. And I think when used effectively, it can have the opposite effect, right? And instead, you can have your team's time more invested in the things that only human beings can do,
Yes,
which is being connected to other humans. You know, I think that's
I could not have said
powerful.
that better myself. That's incredible. Like that's 100% the way that we should be thinking. I think that the thing that scares me a little bit is that I think that are like, and and this is obviously I think changing. It's not nearly as bad as it was in like the 60s or 70s. I do think that our education system does like push people into very task oriented. Like we are like kind of trained to be cogs in a machine. Like it's kind of like we learn, like school usually teaches us how to do a thing rather than how to think about a thing.
Right.
And I think that like that's kind of the biggest challenge that we have is we're going to start to have like we're just going to need people to think a little bit more critically to be able to
Absolutely. And I
become those
think
sorts of
in
people.
some ways that, to your point, that's kind of been the direction that we've been heading anyway. That there has been sort of an epidemic on critical thinking, for a while. And in some ways, again, as we were talking about sort of like the pendulum swing, this helps us illuminate that fact and makes it very difficult not to address the need for us to build skills around critical thinking. Because again, it will be, these sort of lower, less strategic priorities and actions and, conversations and touch points will be monopolized by AI. And so what's left is the stuff that requires critical thinking. You know what I mean? And again, sort of going back to your original question around where I feel like the direction of, as a leader, what I'm looking for when I'm hiring team members, like you said, I mean, it really can be summed up as someone who can think critically, and that's sometimes harder to find than you might think that it is, but
It's very, very hard to find.
it's
I
important.
didn't realize it. I haven't been doing this for like a million years or anything, but I actually think it's easier because like, especially external signals, right? Like you can find external signals, like you can read somebody's resume and figure out, oh, like they know how to code in this specific language, or
Right.
they hit this percentage of target or whatever. It is actually really difficult to surmise. Like it's, this is kind of like a tried trope, but it's the sort of like innovation element where it's like, how
Yeah.
much of the innovation element do they want? Like they always like tell you when you start a company, you should try to hire like people who are like failed founders, because they are the ones that have like, they have that, they at least have, they may not have any other bone. Yeah, they might not have any other bone, any other muscle, but they do have the muscle of like trying to try something, and you kind of just want people that try stuff.
Absolutely.
Which is good. Cool. I think that's actually, we're coming up on time here. First off, thank you so much. This is awesome. This was really, really fun.
This was so
a
fun.
super fun conversation. Do you have anything to pub? You're not a big social media person, so I'm not going to ask the question that I always do, which is, oh, where can our listeners find you? Because sometimes people don't want to be found, but I will ask the question of, I mean, do you have anything that you want to pub? Anything that you want to, anything that you want me to put in the show notes?
I would say that's a good question. You're right. I'm not on social media intentionally, which sometimes makes me seem like a 100-year-old person to the people on my team.
No, it's good. It's good.
It's good for my brain, I think. And otherwise, no. I mean, I Relias is I've been at Relias for 8.5 years. So if I didn't think that the work that Relias does is really meaningful and powerful, I wouldn't, have stuck around so long. So I would say for anybody that is listening that wants to know a little bit more about the world of healthcare technology, check out Relias, because it's one of the healthcare sector is just so interesting because it's so complicated. There's new stuff happening all the time, and it really keeps you on your toes. So my only plug, I think, would be to go check out Relias. And if you encounter any of our, customer experience avenues, leave us some feedback. And I think that's all I got. My
Awesome.
Dog has been sleeping here this whole time.
I was gonna say, yeah, you've got your dog. So cute. Wait, what's your dog's name?
Lucy.
Lucy is so cute.
She's a little miniature weird dog. Yes.
Very cute. I was like, I kept seeing her hair like pop up like a little bit, and I'm like, I really wanted to bring it up, but thanks for being the podcast guest.
Yes.
Lucy has replaced Sean.
Deal. If you need a mascot, she's
honestly
perfect.
A very good mascot. This podcast was hosted by Ibby and Lucy. Thank you so much, Liz, for coming on.
Yes, that's really what you should pub is little baby Lucy.
Lucy's little baby Lucy's paws. Oh,
yes,
so cute.
Exactly. Well, thanks.
All right,
this was great.
Thanks so much. And yeah, I guess best episode we've ever done. Go check out Relias, and thanks for listening.